So I'm rounding out my string of shows that I've been wanting to talk about. Whether a lot of them are new or a lot of them are a little bit older, a lot of it's just trying to catch up on TV shows. I was taking a break from films, talking about TV shows, things that I've watched over the last year or so. And this is probably the most newest of them all. I've mentioned it in a couple of the past entries thus far. It is definitely one of my favorite out of the batch, simply because of its uniqueness in its choice of storytelling. It's a Hulu original, also presented by FX. It's called The Bear, and don't let the name fool you. It's not really something that you expect to be called The Bear. It really is only called that based on the last name of the main character, Carmine. Or Carmen, I believe it is, actually. It's Carmen, yeah, because they call him Carmy as his nickname. His last name is Berzotto? Yeah, I believe it's Berzotto. So his nickname is The Bear, and that's what the name of the show comes from, because it's really revolving around him as a professional chef. Now, as a professional chef, it's kind of showing what has happened to his almost high-level status, where he was working for like one of the top-notch restaurants in New York, and kind of getting bumped back down to this little nothing restaurant in Chicago, and kind of getting stuck there because it's a restaurant that his brother owned, and the reason he has to take it over is because his brother committed suicide. So he's battling the shit situation his brother left him when he picked up the restaurant and had to deal with all of its, it's the shambledness that it was in, and picking it up on that level, also needing to kind of put his own stamp on it while also battling his own, habits. He was very much drilled by the chef he was working for in New York to be a certain way, and he's trying to teach that certain way to these people who basically work in a kitchen of like a bodega for the most part. Now, as the story progresses, he really starts getting them into the habit of like making it almost a respectable restaurant. But the storytelling really becomes compelling is when you see this other form of what restaurant life is like. Restaurant life isn't always what you see in like Burnt. Burnt is a great film with what's his name? Bradley Cooper. That's a great film with him. There's all these films. Another great depiction of chef life is the movie Chef with Jon Favreau. Like, there are just so many few depictions that really could nail down kitchen life. And the only reason I say that is because I spent a year working in a kitchen. And I know what the life is really like and what a lot of it entails. Now, I don't have years of experience in the kitchen, but there's an atmosphere that comes with that I feel like a lot of portrayals of kitchen life in certain movies or certain television shows, they don't really hit it as well when it comes down to the nitty-gritty of everybody's individual personalities. Now, of course, this is a show based on a smaller kitchen in, kind of a shitty neighborhood in Chicago. So you're also dealing with all those other kind of character traits that might come into play with, the back workings of a restaurant. So seeing it all play out it's just very well done to being as true as possible to what kitchen life is in that atmosphere. Again, it's not all Hell's Kitchen. You're not always going to have shows or movies that portray kitchen life like of a fancy kitchen. So when you can get down nitty gritty like that and do something like Chef, where they show you a little bit of like what he did to get his food truck up and running, and then you have this show, The Bear, giving you that little bit of every step he has to take, dealing with being in like 6 figures worth of debt that his brother left him, dealing with the fact that his brother committed suicide, and dealing with his family, and dealing with just all these different personalities. He's got this cousin that works with him, Richie, who's played by he has a funny name. I don't remember him all that well, but he's been in a bunch of things I like. He was in like the Punisher movie, the Punisher TV show, I believe. I've seen him in a bunch of different things. I just can't remember his name because it's very difficult. But the guy who plays Richie, and he's also like, he's a shitstorm. Like, he's going through a divorce. He's one of these old school Chicago Italian dudes who's like running drugs in the back of the restaurant. And Carmine's like, no, you can't be doing that. How dare you? And it's just this back and forth with the two of them, being that they're both family. They're both dealing with the fact that this guy died, and they're trying to get the restaurant up and running, which feels to become almost unsuccessful. And then they have an uncle who's played by Oliver Platt, who comes in every so often. And I love that almost everything I've seen dealing with food over the last couple of years, somehow Oliver Platt gets involved in some way, shape, or form. And I think he's a great actor. I haven't really seen him do anything that's solo. He's kind of always just a side character or an extra character. And I still think, like, every time he pops up, I get happy because I like seeing him. I think he's a lot of fun to watch. The other thing, though, the guy who plays Carmen, Jeremy Allen, I think he's excellent as in this role. This is the first thing I've ever seen him in. I think he's been in other stuff before. I think he's been around for at least a decade or so. But this is definitely the first thing that I've seen him in to actually make me recognize him as a whole. I don't know if he's ever been in anything else. But I could be wrong about that. And maybe that's something that drove a lot of people who were fans of his. But I went into there thinking, hey, I've never seen this guy before. It's a show about cooking. It's a show about working in a kitchen. And I'm very interested. It got huge waves when it premiered back in mid-June, end of June, close to. And by the time the series came to a close, mid-July, it's been renewed for a second season. And it deserves it. Because, like I said, just for its portrayal of what actual kitchen life is, it deserves it. But there's a lot of storytelling stuff that happens that's just also so much fun to watch. It's so compelling. It's so... And I don't mean compelling, like, don't go into this thinking it's going to be like Interstellar or fucking, let's think of some TV shows that aren't like crazy movies. It's not going to be The Sopranos. It's not going to be Game of Thrones. It's not going to be American Horror Story. What it's going to be is it's going to be a show that fills you with a certain level of drama if you have a passion for something like cooking. As a person who loves cooking, I'm a tremendous cook in the kitchen, and you watch this show and you have any sort of background in what the kitchen life is like for a lot of people who are in the background, the people who are making your food, you watch this and you realize there's a whole different world out there, and there's a lot of different characters that you could run into when you work in a kitchen or when you work in this environment of, you know, all of these different personalities clashing in a kitchen that just kind of runs itself. And here's this guy, Carmen, that's trying to reformat it into a professional kitchen. And you see that path that they take, and you see all the struggles that they deal with. We're dealing with the debt collectors and the family issues, and there's a fantastic, I think it's episode 6 or 7. It's right before the season finale, so it has to be 7. They try to implement an online ordering system through a tablet, which, you know, all restaurants are moving into that realm. But of course, this restaurant was so run down in the dumps and has so much debt that they never did that. They did all the old school basic ticketing things. So here's this new chef that comes in and says, here's what you should do. They get a tablet. They set up this online ordering thing. But the chef fucked up, and they're collecting so much steam over the weeks that passed during the show's time frame that they get a lot of people who want their food. You know, they're very good food at this point in time. And so she sets up this online thing, and they don't realize that there's a pre-order option that you could either select to turn on or turn off. So it's turned on, and they turn things on to get ready to start the day. It's 10 minutes before opening, and they get 75 tickets come in that are all pre-orders. And so he sits there and he reads off what the total is, and the chef's like, we need 76 chickens, 12 slices of chocolate cake, 15 hot roasted sandwiches, 45 orders of fries in 15 minutes. And it just blows up. And it's one of those like doesn't cut from the camera doesn't cut from the scene things where it's following around what every character is doing while this ridiculous scenario is playing out and what everybody's trying to do to get all the orders out on time, which is theoretically impossible, but they're trying. And it just shows them all struggling in this one cut shot thing that goes bouncing around to all these different characters. And Carmen is just stressed the fuck out, and he's yelling at everybody. And in this whole scene, two of the main characters of the whole show thus far quit. The guy who bakes the cake and the chick who put the tablet stuff in place. She's the one that sit here and said, we have to do tablets. Then the tablet fucked up, and she decided, I'm not taking responsibility for this, and she fucks off. So there are points in time when you sit there and you go, are people really like this? And coming from a small, short stint in the kitchen community, in the working, the service industry community, yes, a lot of people are like this, whether or not it's their fault. If something gets fucked up and they get overwhelmed and they can't handle it, they will walk the fuck out, especially with how all the stress that everybody's going through. You know, she's new to this kitchen. You know, she's kind of like a trying to be an up-and-comer almost. And here you have this guy who was one of the most well-known chefs in, like, the United States, and he's now been bumped down, and he works at this shithole, and she wants to learn from him, but he's dealing with all the other stuff that comes with this shithole. It's very much something to be upset about when she walks out, but it's understandable in and of itself, too. So I thought this was such a great show. I'm so happy it's been renewed for a second season. I don't know what the second season's really going to hold. They did end it on a very high note. The name of the restaurant is called The Beef of Chicago or something. And by the end of it, he puts a sign up. They hit it so big that he puts a sign up that says, the beef is closed. The bear is coming. So his nickname is the Bear. He's now decided that the restaurant is going to now be named the Bear. And now we're going to see what's going to happen to the restaurant in season 2 and see what kind of, where the season, after this season, where they left off, what the new stuff is going to be that we're going to be moving into. I think this is totally worth it. If you like cooking shows, if you're even interested, if you know who the guy who plays Carmen is, if he's been around longer, you know, and you just like him as an actor. Again, I don't know anything he's been in before this, so maybe just take a look at it, watch the trailer for it. I had gotten, you know, stuff that popped up on my Facebook that was promoting it, and I probably get that because I watch a lot of FX content, and I think FX is, you know, great. They push out a lot of great things, and just seeing something like The Bear was intriguing in just the promo. So that's why I gave it a shot. So if you're just coming across extra things to tell you whether or not you should give The Bear a shot, hopefully you've already done so. If not, let this be like my message to you. Sit down and watch The Bear. They're like 25, 30-minute episodes, and they're all worth it. Nothing is filler. It's all just really fun, entertaining, and just enjoyable storytelling about kitchen life. And it's worth it. It's 110% worth it.